What's going on, everyone? So with the addition of our set 2 cards in our set 1 pool, we finally start to see some really powerful combos in Star Wars Unlimited. Combos that can potentially do 30 damage in a single turn in the middle stages of the game, or even combos that wreck your opponent's resource base, things that set you up for a win in the early stages of the game, or can close out a surprise win based on, well, any sort of different factors. We're going to talk about it all today. These are the most powerful combos in Star Wars Unlimited. Before we do, I have a couple of announcements. First thing is, I have a TCG play link in the description down below. Be sure to use it if you want to pick up any set 1 or set 2 cards. And I also have a Patreon that a few of you have already checked out and joined. If you want to get a potential chance to join in on some viewer games, sign up down below, or, just talk with me on a daily basis. Without further ado, let's get started with our first powerful combo in Star Wars Unlimited. So to get us started, we probably have the most exciting combo to ever pull off in Star Wars Unlimited. This could potentially one-shot your opponent in a single turn. It is amazing because you could do 30 damage with this with 6 resources and a Grand Inquisitor flip. So you can really do some major work. I've only pulled it off once in the massive amount of games that I've played with Grand Inquisitor, and just in general, it is amazing to do. So the idea behind this is, with the new clan challengers, we now have a 6 powered unit that we can ready up with Grand Inquisitor, because he has a base power 3 but with raid 3. Don't really care about the upgraded part of it because we're not really going to be upgrading him. The idea behind this is we have sneak attack, keep fighting, and clan challengers in our hand, and we have a Grand Inquisitor action and a Grand Inquisitor flip ready. Now, you could do various different versions of this. Like, if you just play clan challengers and ready it up with Grand Inquisitor, you get to immediately attack for 6, and that's already pretty good. Like, that's already something that I've played in my Grand Inquisitor deck. You could also clan challengers off of sneak attack, and that costs you 4 resources, attack with clan challengers, and then ready up with it with Grand Inquisitor, right? So you do this top part, play clan challengers with sneak attack with clan challengers for 6, ready up the clan challengers with Grand Inquisitor, attack for another 6, and that's 12 damage on turn 3. That's really powerful. But then we start to do the full combo. We sneak attack out of clan challengers, we attack for 6. We ready up the clan challengers with Grand Inquisitor, attack for another 6. That's 12. We then flip Grand Inquisitor, and we attack with Grand Inquisitor. It attacks for 3. That's 15 damage. With the on attack trigger, we deal a damage to the clan challengers, which readies up the clan challengers. We then attack with clan challengers for a 3rd time this turn, which is up to 21 total damage. We then keep fighting the Grand Inquisitor, attack with Grand Inquisitor for 3 more damage, which is 24, and then ready up the clan challengers a final time for the last 6 points of damage, dealing a total of 30 damage in 1 turn. Again, I've only pulled this off once, and it wasn't even necessarily, well, reasonable. Like, you didn't need to do it because you didn't need to deal 30 damage in 1 turn. There are some situations where your opponent's healing, or they've controlled your initial part of the board so well that this kind of just hits them for a ton of damage. I have very frequently hit for, 18 points of damage or 21 points of damage. I've done that, like, well, I shouldn't say frequently, but 2 to 3 times with Grand Inquisitor. The full 30 points of damage in a single turn, though, is absolutely absurd and can really do some work against your opponents. If you ever get this actually to pull off, or you ever get to pull this off in an actual game, your opponent is going to be absolutely brutalized, and you will never forget it. I have never forgotten the time I pulled it off against my opponent, and my goodness, was it incredibly fun. Not to say that this is going to be an extremely competitive combo. Playing Grand Inquisitor Yellow, I think, is a little bit weaker than Grand Inquisitor Blue, for example. But this is, well, clan challengers and sneak attack in particular is the reason why Grand Inquisitor Yellow, at least in my opinion, even has a chance. The amount of burst damage that you can do with Grand Inquisitor Yellow is extremely powerful, and this is one of the most broken combos that you can actually do in the deck, or even in general. You could just absolutely hit someone for absurd amounts of damage out of nowhere, and that's what makes this truly terrifying. So I had to shrink myself down for this one because we got ourselves a Jabba Dryden combo. Now, this is something that I've actually pulled off numerous times. This is not difficult to pull off at all, and it absolutely wins you the game in a majority of matchups on turn 6 with your Jabba as your leader. Now, this is a very, very easy combo to pull off. One, because it's really just a one card combo. And what I mean by that is all you need to draw is Dryden Voss. Because the way this works is you need any unit that you have on the battlefield, like any unit. It could be literally any unit on the battlefield. You flip Jabba on turn 6, or maybe even earlier if you have 7 resources. You're able to, as you can see here, when deployed, another friendly unit captures an enemy non-linear unit. So you capture whatever unit underneath this unit. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter what arena it is in. Doesn't matter at all. And then you just play Dryden. You just play Dryden. And you get to choose whatever unit you captured with that unit. And you get to play it for free. Now, the reason why this is so interesting and so powerful is it's really just, if I draw Dryden, I can pull this together. The other thing about Dryden is normally Dryden is kind of hard to pull off because all the capture cards, generally speaking, have some sort of limitation. Legal authority, based on your power. Relentless pursuit, based on the cost. Take captive, things like that. Some of them have restrictions on arena. Like it has to be in the same arena. Like you can't capture a space unit with a ground unit. Jabba has none of those restrictions. You just capture any non-leader unit with whatever unit you want, and you're just going to play it with Dryden for free. And this is an absolutely game-winning play. Almost every time, unless you're fighting a control deck, in which case then, you're not going to be able to capture something normally, and they might just super laser blast you. If you're playing against like a mid-range deck, you can capture crate dragons, or a ramp deck, you can capture crate dragons. If you're playing against an aggro deck, you can capture opposed and wreckers and things like K2s. The idea behind this is you don't just get a resource swing in your favor by removing that unit. You also get that unit itself. So let's say your opponent spends, 7 resources to play a maul, they ambush something, and you're like, oh, dang. Well, now you get to capture that maul underneath your unit, play Dryden. So now you have a 7 resource, 5/7 shielded. So you have a 5/7 shielded. You get to take their maul and then play it yourself. And mind you, it's play it for free, which triggers any sort of when played abilities. It's not just put it on the battlefield. It's when played, or it's you may play it for free. So you get the ambush effect from maul. All this to say, you now have essentially a 14 resource flip in your favor because you've stolen a 7 resource play from your opponent. It's not just you've played a 7 resource play, you've stolen those 7 resources from your opponent and you've played them for free. This is an absolutely game swinging play. And one of the reasons why I think Jabba is actually something that you can play in the meta right now because of this combo alone. The next one on our list is arguably the most competitive combo that we have, as not only is the combo exceptionally powerful, but it also goes into a shell that's one of the top meta decks in the format right now. Now, this combo can be played in realistically any Cunning Heroism deck, but really where it works is in Han, OG Han, because of the ability to ramp and the ability to make it extremely resilient. How does this work? Well, we need to play tech first. Now, you can play it in the late game, you can play it in the early game, whatever it is. You just need to have tech on the battlefield. This states any resource that you have, each friendly resource gains smuggle, and that smuggle cost is that card's cost +2 and its aspect icons. Now, DJ is a 3/5 that has smuggle, 7 double cunning. And when you play using smuggle, you take control of an enemy resource, and when he leaves play, you give that resource back. Now, normally, that's extremely expensive. Playing this guy for 7 resources as a double cunning and just stealing an opponent's resource is like, whatever. That doesn't really impact the game most of the time. Some cases it will, but most of the time, it's not going to be all that relevant, especially since they can just kill it and get the resource back. But with tech, suddenly, that smuggle becomes 5 resources and single cunning. So now you don't need to play double cunning if you don't want to, or you don't want to put it in that shell. You can play other colors, and it costs 5 resources. That's much more potent because suddenly you're playing this early on into the game where it actually disrupts your opponent's leader flip. But that's not all. The reason why we want to play in an OG Han is because 1, you can ramp into it. In that turn 1, you go resupply. Let's say you're playing Han green. Turn 1, you go action, put a card down from your hand. You can put DJ down into your resource pile if you want. Remember, you can play him later using smuggle. Play a resupply. Turn 2, you play tech. Turn 3, you action another Han, and then you can smuggle out DJ. This is turn 3. Remember, your opponent's on 4 resources, or maybe even 5 if they're ramping. And now you've stolen 1 from them. But that's not all. When I said earlier, which is if you defeat DJ, you get the resource back, isn't actually the case in OG Han. Because at the start of the next action phase, with the action from Han, you defeat a resource you control. You are able to defeat the resource that DJ stole, preventing your opponent from killing DJ and getting their resource back. This is essentially completely destroying your opponent's resource and putting you up on a resource, which basically wins you the game in a lot of situations if you're able to pull it off in the early stages of the game. But it's not just a combo that you could pull off in the early stages, as I mentioned, especially with Han, because if you play this later on in the game, remember, you still get to defeat that resource. So you always have the potential of essentially deleting a resource from your opponent and giving you +1 resource with Han Solo action, which is extremely, extremely powerful, especially with tech on the battlefield in general, because those extra resources allow you to essentially cycle through all the other cards that you have in your resource pile and gives you an immensely powerful mid to late game, while also accelerating you into that point while your opponent's decelerated into that kind of mediocre early game. Really powerful combo, and we've seen it many, many times on camera in competitive games, while also just being a really, really powerful combo in general, even outside of that. The next combo on our list is arguably the most competitive combo alongside Tech and DJ, right behind it or right up there with it. Fett's Firespray plus a new adventure plus triple dark raid and messing up all of our opponent's stuff. The way this works is you must first have Boba Fett as your leader or control a Boba Fett / Jango Fett unit. So you can do this outside of Boba Fett, but you do need to be playing double yellow usually, and double yellow Boba is one of the most popular / best decks in the format. And we've seen Fett's Firespray before. 6 resources, 5/6, you play it, it readies immediately if you have Boba Fett as your leader. You get to attack for 5 immediately. Very powerful way to end the game. Now with a new adventure, you can return that Fett's Firespray to your hand and then play it for free. This allows you to play Fett's Firespray and then a new adventure a little bit later alongside something like a Cunning. So you Cunning plus a new adventure because it only costs 2 resources. After attacking with Fett's Firespray, you attack for 5, a new adventure, attack for another 5. Really powerful, right? But here's where it gets really, really quite exciting. Then we got to talk about Triple Dark Raid. So Triple Dark Raid allows you to search the top 7 cards of your deck for a vehicle. Fett's Firespray is a vehicle. It costs 5 less and it enters play ready. Return it to the owner's hand at the end of the phase. Now you actually don't need Fett's Firespray specifically, but it is one of the most commonly played cards in the Boba Fett deck, as well as just working really well with a new adventure. So the idea behind this is you Triple Dark Raid, let's say you have 6 resources. You Triple Dark Raid, you get to play Fett's Firespray for essentially 1 additional resource. So you've spent 4 resources and you've gotten a Fett's Firespray. Now remember, it's going to return to your hand at the end of the phase. However, we attack with Fett's Firespray and then we play a new adventure. This returns it to our hand and then we play it for free and it readies a second time. So we got in for 10 damage on that turn where we could have deployed Fett's Firespray. And because it's a new entity after a new adventure, it actually does not return to your hand. Now, this works with all sorts of cards. It works with Xanadu Blood. It works with, if you happen to be playing Greed and you're playing a 4-costed new adventure, you could do it with, Pirate Battle Tank or whatever. You could do it with 7th Fleet Defender, TIE Phantom, TIE Advance, whatever it is. As long as you're paying the cost for all these cards, you could prevent the return to its owner's hand at the end of the phase. But the most competitive version of this combo is the Fett's Firespray plus a new adventure. And it actually is even more exciting as of late because we've started to see a lot of double green Palpatine. And one of the cards that Palpatine tends to have a little bit of trouble with is an early deployed Fett's Firespray because they don't have that many space units usually in the deck. But the way they deal with it is by dealing a damage to Fett's Firespray and stealing it. However, with a new adventure, you can return that Fett's Firespray that they stole to your hand and then replay it, which allows you to get in for another 5 and actually comes back to your side of the battlefield. It also works against things like Entrenched, for example, or Frozen in Carbonite, or any other upgrade that you've played on Fett's Firespray. A new adventure just straight up removes them because you've returned that unit to your hand, which made all the upgrades go to the discard pile. This is actually really powerful and is starting to see a lot more play because of Emperor Palpatine Double Green being a very popular deck, and because of control starting to creep up a little bit and starting to see more entrenched. Regardless of those two, just playing the Triple Dark Raid on turn 5 with 6 resources, getting a Fet's Firespray, and then a new adventuring it and getting in for 10 damage on that turn is already a potent combination. And it's really a 2-card combo, right? Triple Dark Raid plus a new adventure. And even if you hit something a little bit weaker, like a 7th Fleet Defender, you're still getting in for 3 damage, and you still get that 7th Fleet Defender on the battlefield afterwards, which is still reasonable. It's not extremely exciting, but it's still decent. So lots of kind of consistency with this and very powerful outcomes very frequently in double yellow boba. The last one we're going to talk about is one of the most simple yet elegant and powerful combos in Star Wars Unlimited. This is such a powerful tempo play that sets you completely ahead on board while also potentially getting in for massive chunks of damage a little bit later on, that really kind of sets you up for complete domination as early as turn 2. And it is what kind of makes Yellow Tarkin such a powerful deck, both ground and space. It's very straightforward. Your opponent plays a 2-resource 2/2, an Incinerator Trooper. However, it does have an ability that when it's attacking, it deals damage before the defender. You simply have your opponent play a ground unit. Even if they don't, Incinerator Trooper on the ground sets up for a very powerful couple of next turns with Tarkin as your leader. Let's say they play a ground unit. You follow it up with a Snowtrooper Lieutenant. This allows you to attack with a unit. If it's an Imperial, it gets +2/+0 for this attack. There are very, very few units in the game that survive this turn 2 play. If your opponent plays a Battlefield Marine, if your opponent plays a Gamorrean Guards, if your opponent plays a Yularen, if your opponent plays, heck, like a Ezra Bridger, or even a 3-drop like Night Owl Skirmisher, or heck, even something like, well, if they have 5 toughness, they could survive it. But something like a Sundari Peacekeeper with Han Solo on turn 1, whatever it is, as long as they have less than 5 toughness, 4 or less, which is very, very common, Incinerator Trooper will kill it without taking any damage. And then the reason why this combo is really scary is because of Tarkin. You can now give an experience token to either the Snowtrooper Lieutenant or the Incinerator Trooper. And this sets you up for a massive tempo swing that also puts you ahead on damage in terms of next turn. You've kept your units, you've killed your opponent's units, and you've pumped your units. So now the next turn, if your opponent, let's say, just plays a unit, well, you could potentially pump your Incinerator Trooper a second time with Tarkin's action to get it up to 4 power, or because you're on turn 3 now, you play a TIE Advanced, which gives 2 experience to your Incinerator Trooper, which puts it in a situation where it could basically kill anything without taking any damage. And when you're in a situation where you have a unit on the battlefield that can just kill any of your opponent's units and not take any damage, it really starts to get out of hand. And Tarkin, being the way he is, allows you to just constantly put experience tokens on your units and continuously apply that pressure. Incinerator Trooper can absolutely win you a game. Now, it doesn't happen every game again, but it is one of the things that makes Tarkin scary in the early stages of the game. If you're in a matchup like, let's say, Sabine Green, and your opponent plays an Incinerator Trooper, there might be a spot where you just have to ECL out something to deal with it because of how potent the combo is. If you don't, and they have initiative, they play an Incinerator Trooper, you play a Battlefield Marine, they take initiative, and Snowtrooper Lieutenant, your Battlefield Marine, suddenly you're not dealing any damage, your opponent has a better board state, and you still have to deal with the Incinerator Trooper, because otherwise it'll just get out of hand very quickly. So very, very potent combo, and something you absolutely have to be kind of cognizant of when you're fighting Tarkin Yellow, and they start off with an Incinerator Trooper. If you don't, and you're unprepared for it, you will absolutely get tempoed out of the game and completely lose very quickly. So those are the most broken combos in Star Wars Unlimited, either setting you up for extreme success or just giving you such a massive advantage, or completely just ending the game in of themselves, that we really start to build decks around in some cases. In Boba Yellow's case, or the Han Double Yellow or Han Green, these are kind of built around their respective combos. In the Fett's Firespray, if you go the triple arc raid route, or the Tech DJ combo. My personal favorite is the Jabba Dryden. This is, at least in my opinion, the most powerful 2-card combo. But Jabba Yellow, you're not playing Boba Green or Boba Double Yellow. Jabba is a little bit of a weaker leader, which is why we don't see the Jabba in a Dryden combo right now. But I'm sure there are other combos out there. Let me know what your favorite combos are. Maybe they are maybe not as powerful as this, but set you up for such a massive advantage that you can win. I am still waiting for the day that we see this type of combo on camera in a tournament setting. I can't wait for it, because this is the absolute sweetest combo in the whole game. It's not my favorite in terms of like just how good it makes me feel, but it is so convoluted and so many actions in a row that if we ever see this actually take place, I will be ecstatic. But that's going to be the end of the video. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed, and remember, check out my Patreon down below. Use my TCG link in the description down below, and I will see you all for a video soon.